Barry Burden joins me now. Barry's a political science professor and director of the Elections Research Center at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Good morning, Barry. Glad you could be with us.
Good morning.
All right, we'll talk about Wisconsin in just a second, but I want to begin by asking you about Pennsylvania. If there ever was a battleground state, this is it. Both President Trump and Joe Biden both desperately want to win this state. Why is it so important?
Well, Pennsylvania is an interesting state because it sort of connects the Northeast and the Midwest. So it has a little bit of everything, big industrial cities, lots of rural communities. So in some ways, it's a microcosm of the United States. It's also a populous state, so it contributes a lot of electoral votes, more than Wisconsin or Maine or some of the other swing states this year. It's also one that's showing real closeness in the polls. And so it makes a lot of sense that both campaigns would keep their attention on Pennsylvania.
So let's talk about the so-called blue wall. You're in Wisconsin, part of that wall. How well do you think Joe Biden is doing? Is it a lock for him there?
There's no lock, but he is doing well. The polling in the upper Midwest in states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota shows him with pretty sizable, if not commanding leads, anywhere from a few percentage points to double-digit leads. I think even the kind of polling errors that we saw 4 years ago would not be enough in most of these cases for him to lose the state. Again, there are votes to be cast on Election Day, and Trump is betting on a strong showing from Election Day voters. But right now, he looks to be in trouble, trailing Biden in most of these formerly blue wall states.
Over the weekend, Trump supporters surrounded a Biden campaign on a Texas highway. A lot of people see this as intimidation. We've also seen in New York, for example, storefronts that are boarding up in anticipation of what could be perhaps a violent night tomorrow night or going into the wee hours of Wednesday. What does all of that tell you about where Americans are in this election? And what is the president doing to kind of fan those flames?
Well, there are certainly a lot of intense feelings on both sides and some radical actions potentially being taken. Donald Trump doesn't do anything to tamp those down. He encourages violence. He was even suggesting at a rally yesterday that he might slap Joe Biden around. So those kinds of assertions and support for that kind of activity doesn't help matters. It's also been a summer of protest in the streets and some violence over policing and issues related to the Black Lives Matter movement. So I think that the pandemic and the frustration of that situation, the anticipation of the result after a very long presidential campaign that's lasted for well over a year, unfortunately might lead to some activity in the streets.
And at a rally yesterday, in addition to talking about Joe Biden, he said, "Fire Fauci," and the crowd started chanting it. And he said, "Let's wait until after the election." Was he telegraphing what he may do, win or lose, following Election Day with Fauci and perhaps others?
I think so. Whether Trump ends up winning the election, at least apparently tomorrow and the days after, or not, he's likely to make changes to his administration between now and January 20th, when the inauguration happens. Fauci, I think, is at the very top of the list of administration officials who are likely to go. But there may be others, including the Attorney General, some cabinet secretaries, or other advisors. So I would expect a shakeup, win or lose.
Barry Burden. Barry's a political science professor and director of the Elections Research Center at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Thank you so much.